Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Ukrn, and in today's video I'll be sharing with you how I actually passed NCLEX on the very first try. So just a quick background of myself and my nursing journey. I was first registered in Nigeria as a nurse sometime in 2011, and I then moved to the UK several years after, and so I've got the Nigerian nursing license and of course the UK nursing license, and I decided to take the NCLEX to become a US registered nurse. So in total I've got about 13 years of nursing experience, going on to 14, both in Nigeria and of course the UK combined. So the NCLEX is actually the National Council Licensure Examination, and it's a nationwide examination for the licensing of nurses in the United States, Canada, and of course Australia. And there are two types of NCLEX. There's the Ngn Nclex-Rn and there's the Nclex-Rn. But in this case, I took the Nclex-Rn because, of course, I wanted to become a registered nurse in the US, knowing fully well that I'm already a registered nurse in Nigeria and of course the UK. So in my case, I actually took the Ngn, which is the next generation NCLEX, and this was actually launched April 1st of 2023. So for people who took the NCLEX before April 1st 2023, it was the normal or the previous NCLEX, but I took the Ngn, which is the next generation NCLEX, and it's got in total 150 questions, but you will take a minimum of 85 questions, which I did. I took 85 questions, but you could actually take 150 questions, and you have a total of about 5 hours to complete the examination. Okay, so for the question types you get during the NCLEX, you would have different kind of questions. You would have multiple choice questions, you would have select all the apply questions, you would have fill in the blank questions, especially when it comes to calculation, like drug dosage and all of that. That comes with fill in the blank, because you would put the actual figure in a blank space. And yeah, so there's always drag and drop questions. You could be asked to highlight the correct answer. So there are different forms of questions you would find in the NCLEX. Like I said, SATA, which is select order apply, multiple choice, which would maybe choose one answer, and you would have drag and drop, like I said, highlight the correct answers, and you could also have fill in the blank type of questions. You may actually be wondering how the NCLEX is actually scored, or how do you know if you pass the NCLEX or fail the NCLEX. Like I said, you have a total of 150 questions, but the minimum you can actually take is 85 in the new generation NCLEX. So this is from UORD. I had to just go online to find a way of explaining better how NCLEX is actually scored. So the computer, UORD nursing actually says the computer will stop delivering new questions when the algorithm determines with 95% confidence that you have achieved competency. For example, the computer may determine that you've passed once you've answered the minimum number of questions, which is 85, or at any number after that up to 150 questions. If you run out of time or complete the maximum number of questions, of course, which is 150 questions, within the 5 hours, the computer will determine whether you are above or below the passing point. And I would leave a graph on the screen for you to see, which is just a graph of when I was practicing and taking questions for the exam. So it shows you the score line, which is like a straight line, and then it shows you your own rhythm, like are you above the graph or the line, or are you below the line. So for each question you answer, you're either above or below the graph, and it just keeps going up and down, and if the computer can actually determine that you have achieved competency based on how high above that straight line you've been in the course of the exams, it will determine that you've passed. Or if it's how low you've been consistently throughout the exam, it could determine that you failed. So there's really no score per se for the NCLEX. The algorithm just determines if you've been able to achieve competency, and that's how it's scored really. So now let's talk about the timeline, and by this I'm referring to the time that I actually started the process up until the time I was able to take the NCLEX. So I started my application. Again, there are several processes on this journey to becoming a US RN, but I started the initial application for licensure under the Texas Board of Nursing. I started October 26th, yes, October 26th of last year, which is 2023. And obviously from one step I was going to another step and another step and another step. I also registered with Joseph Silney. So in the past I had registered with CGFNS. Like I used to have an account with CGFNS, and I think I renewed the account a couple of times and I just stopped renewing the account. So in this situation I honestly just didn't bother going back to CGFNS. And again, I heard that they've got loads of backlog and they were wasting a lot of time, so I did not even bother to revisit my CGFNS account. Obviously it was even expired, but I didn't even bother to like go back to my CGFNS account. I just registered with Joseph Silney, and they were very, very quick. From the point where my transcript was submitted directly from my school, and from the point where Nursing Council of Nigeria also submitted my license verification, like from the time that they had all the documents together, it took just 1 month for them to like do my credential evaluation and send the report over to Texas Board of Nursing. So it was very, very quick. Like in 1 month they were done with the evaluation. So I highly recommend Joseph Silney if you're considering which company to use for your credential evaluation, because there are several of them, right? The CGFNS, there's Joseph Silney. I know there are several other ones, but I think these two are like the most popular. I may be wrong, but I went to Joseph Silney and they did me well. Like I'm a very, very satisfied customer. So after that I did the fingerprints. I mean, there are just like several steps where they do like the criminal background check and all of that. So from that October 26th that I started the whole process and all of that, my ATC was issued January 25. Like it was so quick. By January 25 I got an email saying, oh, you have your ATT. So I had to like book my Ngn Nclex, and I booked it for March 7. So in December, like when my credential was in the process of being evaluated, when I knew that everything had been submitted to Joseph Silney, I started to study, and I bought the material. I bought some study materials and I started studying, and I paid for 3 months subscription. And it's so funny because the 3 month subscription ended March 6 and I booked my exam for March 7. I didn't even think of the subscription when I booked my exam. It was just a coincidence. So my study material actually ended a day before my Ngn Nclex exam, and that was just the right timing and all of that. So that's that about the timeline. Again, the timeline is actually very subjective. Like it's not like a one size fit all kind of situation. It is highly subjective. So it depends on how fast your school sends your documents, or your nursing council of wherever you're watching from, whichever country you're registered under. You know how quick they're able to like send your license verification. Mine was very quick. I remember applying online for my license verification. The following week I realized that they had sent my verification. Like it was just very easy, very easy. I was thinking it was going to take forever, but obviously Nursing Council of Nigeria now are very quick. Well, at the time I did mine, they were very quick with verification. It was online. You didn't even have to like do anything. You didn't have to like, it was very easy. Just upload your documents online and make the payments, and that was it. And the following week, or maybe like 10 days after, almost 2 weeks, but it was a little bit over 1 week, the verification had been sent to Joseph Silney. So it was very easy. So in 3 months ATT was out and I had to book my Ngn Nclex. So that's the timeline, but like I've said earlier, it might be different for you, especially if your school is not so quick with one thing or the other, or I mean for whatever reason it might not just be as quick as this. Some people also might have issues with their fingerprints, because I think the company that handles that is called Identigo. Yeah, I think I'm correct. So they are the ones in charge of that. And you would, again, I did not use any external body for my fingerprinting. I bought the fingerprint card on Amazon. I bought the thumbprint, I don't know, whatever it's called, the ink. Yeah, the ink. I bought the ink on Amazon as well. So everything I bought was on Amazon, and I spent maybe about £20 for all of that, the cards and of course the ink. And I did everything at home by just watching a YouTube video. I might leave the link to the video in the description, the video I watched. And I think the video was even done by Nigerian. Honestly, yeah, it wasn't by Nigerian. I'll leave the link to the video. I just watched the video, and I was watching the video, I was doing my fingerprints. I did all of that exactly as it was said in the video, and I sent it over, and I had no issues whatsoever. Again, I must also say that, so I think on Amazon I bought about 5 cards, 5 fingerprint cards, and I sent all the 5 cards. So if you're doing this and you're at this process buy 5 cards and send all of the 5. Why do you want to keep some? Just use all of them, because again, I was worried that some may not be well put together, like the fingerprints. Some of them might be all over the place, and some were actually all over the place. Like I could obviously see that some were all over the place, and some I did them so well. Again, just to be on the safe side, just do as many as possible and send all of them. So I sent all 5 cards. The only thing I did was I let them dry before posting them. Then I put their backs in opposite directions. Then I put a plain paper in between each of them, just so they don't rub off on each other, if you get what I mean. So there was a plain paper in between each of them. That was what I did, and I sent them off like that. Like so, just do multiple fingerprinting and send all of that. There's no point, just sending a card and they send it back saying it wasn't acceptable and all of that, just to avoid that. So that was what I did, and there was no issue whatsoever. They did not reject any of the cards and all of it. Just looking back now, maybe it was even just one out of those cards that were like maybe 1 or maybe 2 out of those cards were like, okay. I'm thinking now, like about 3 of them were not even like that good. I'm guessing now, I may be wrong, but it's better to send more than send just 1 and it gets rejected. So that's that about that. Okay, so the next I will talk about is the study resources. So like I said, I used a few. Now, one thing I knew I was not going to do before starting my NCLEX journey, I knew I wasn't going to like shop for different study materials. First of all, I didn't have the time. I work full time, I have a child, I was also writing my dissertation. Like I just knew that studying different materials wasn't just something I wanted to do. So I did my research. Even before I started the application, I already knew the study material I was going to buy. Like I was very very definitive when it came to that. I knew what I wanted and I was going for that, and I was not going to be convinced otherwise. Like, so I was very much okay with the one I had chosen, and it was Archer review that I went for. Obviously I checked a lot of their reviews. I like whatever I will be buying. It doesn't even have to do with NCLEX. Generally, whatever I'll be buying, I like checking reviews of whatever product I'll be buying, and it was the same for Archer, and I was very much convinced that I liked the products. It's so funny because I wasn't even looking at I wasn't really, my decision to go with Archer wasn't based on what other people felt. It was solely based on my research and what I felt. And I would actually advise people, because I know a lot of people who buy several products. Like they will buy Bootcamp, they would buy Archer, they will buy UWorld, they will buy Simply Nursing. But guys, I may get the names wrong because I just loads and loads. So for me, I just feel like stay with one and make sure that you actually devour whichever one you buy. Like make use of it, squeeze every juice out of whichever one you buy and stick to it. So I bought Archer and I bought 3-month subscription. So it started December 6 and it ended March 6. So the 3 months was what I bought, and I knew that I was going to take my NCLEX, in the space of those 3 months. Well, I assumed that was going to be the case, and that was the case eventually. So to support my Archer subscription, I've always had Ngn audios on my phone, or Google Drive to be precise, forever. I think the first time I collected them from a friend was sometime in 2017, and I've always had them in my Google Drive since then. So what I just did was to go back to my Google Drive and then just downloaded everything to my iPad, to my phone. So I had those audios on all of my gadgets. I had them on my laptop, I had them on my iPad, and I also had them on my phone. So I had them everywhere. So regardless of where I was or what I was doing, I could pretty much plug my ears and listen to Nclex-Rn, and that was exactly what I did. Even in the car, I would play it on my phone and just connect on Bluetooth, and as I'm driving, I was listening to Nclex-Rn, and it was very very good for me. And one thing about Nclex-Rn is the fact that it teaches you as if it's teaching like kindergarten, like as if it's teaching children. It simplifies everything for you. You would think it's actually teaching children or talking to children. That's the way it talks, or that's the way it teaches, or that's the way it taught these particular audios. And I'm sure you know about them already because they're very very popular, and they really really helped me. I was listening to them day and night. Even before I became very serious with my Archer, I became very very serious, first of all with the Nclex-Rn audio. So that was what I used, basically the Nclex audios, and of course Archer. Now if you buy the Archer subscription, you have question banks, and of course you would have videos as well for different subjects: pharmacology, prioritization, diabetes, like for different systems, for everything really. They have separate videos. But again, within the subscription, you would also have, which was what I did now, or what I focused on, they also have crash courses. So they have I think there was time they did like a 3-day course or something. Anyways, it was included in that subscription, so you have access to the crash courses, and it was for 3 days. So day 1, day 2, day 3 for the crash courses, and each of them was like for 8 hours. It was so long, but I already made up my mind I was going to focus on the crash courses as the video part of my study. And the Q bank, definitely, I'm very big on practicing questions. And I remember when I was in nursing school, I used to focus more on solving past, we used to call them past questions. I used to focus more on studying past questions than actual studying, if you get what I mean. And it's something that has worked for me. So I knew that on this NCLEX journey, I was going to focus a lot more on answering questions, and that will take me to my next point on the tips that actually helped me in succeeding in my NCLEX test. So definitely take questions, and take more questions. So I was doing minimum of 85 questions per day. Again, if you remember, I said I bought the material, the actual material, December 6th, but the whole of December I was honestly just not serious about it. I could take like 85 questions, one lot of 85 questions in 1 week. Like, I wasn't very serious. But from like middle of January, or should I say towards the end of January, I became very serious. Like, I was taking at least a lot of 85 questions per day. There were times I was doing more, but honestly from 1st of Feb, I was very serious. Like, there was no day I did not do at least 85 questions. And again, something I also started doing, I wasn't doing a lot of tutorial questions. I was just going straight to readiness assessment test. So there are like 3 versions of mode. So when you're answering questions, you could either click on the tutorial mode, or the readiness assessment mode, or the CAT mode, which is the computer adaptive test mode, which is like the one that mimics NCLEX itself, the real exam, right? So I was doing a lot of readiness assessment, and it's so funny because the only time I failed the readiness assessment was the very first one I took, where I think I actually failed the very first one, and sometime along the line I had one borderline. Every other one was very high, and in total I took about 18 readiness assessment before my actual exam, and I passed. So out of 18 I passed 17. The first one was the one I failed, the heavy other one I passed, and I passed with very high. So I think there's always I may be wrong, but there's a way they say that you should have maybe about 4 or 5 very high readiness assessments before your exam. I'm not sure of the exact figure, but they encourage you to have a lot of readiness assessments, a lot of very high scores in your readiness assessment before you go for the actual test. So out of the 18 readiness assessment, either 18 or 19, I can't remember. Yeah, I think about 18. I passed 17, and the first one was the one I failed, and at some point I had one borderline, but every other one was very high and very high. For the CAT mode, because they also have the CAT mode, which actually mimics the actual exam, I didn't take so much of that. In fact, I started taking my CAT maybe just 2 or 3 days to my exam. Yeah, because I was doing a lot of readiness assessment. I took a bit of CAT maybe 3-4 days to my exam now. And for the CAT, yeah, I think I also passed. I'll show you actually, but I think I also passed out of, I think I took about 5 of them now, CATs in total. Maybe I passed 3 or 4. Anyways, I would check. I've got some screenshots, and I'll double check. So that's what helped me. I was doing a lot. So for the Q bank, the question bank, I actually did 79% of the questions on the Q bank, because I had read somewhere that I think by Hatcher they would recommend that you do at least 75. Yeah, in one of the videos that I'd watched, they had recommended that you do at least 75% of the questions in their Q bank. So yeah, I did 79%, and when I did that, I was already sure that I was ready for the exam. Another thing that helped me with Hatcher is reading the rationale. So whenever I take a lot of questions, And when I always go back to the explanations and the rationale. And I had a book where I was always like writing. I had a specific book for NCLEX where I was writing all the rationales for every questions I missed, and even the ones that I answered correctly, I would still write the rationales down. So that really helped. So please, whenever you take those tests or those exams or questions on maybe Hatcha, or maybe it's you or you want, I use Hatcha, just make sure you go back and read the rationale, because there's no point doing all the questions and not going back to read the rationale. In fact, I'd written so much rationales or explanations and all of that I had like a whole journal just for explanations of all the answers I had taken, and that actually helped a lot. So please make sure you do that. As regards Max audios, so again, in my Google Drive, because it's been a long time I had it on my Google Drive, I found out that there was a yellow book and blue book. I'd totally forgotten about it, so I had to print them out, and then I started writing into them. So something that also helps me, besides listening, I like writing, and it's something I've realized over the years, even when I was in nursing school. Whatever I write down kind of sticks to my brain. It just works for me that way. So for Ngn Nclex, as I was listening, I was also writing, and what I did was I was now writing in the yellow. So there's a yellow book and there's a blue book, and I was just writing in the yellow book. I did not really use the blue book because there was no time. But the yellow book, I used it in and out, and I was just writing on it. Again, something else that helps me is using different colors of pen. I use the red, blue, green, and black pen for different aspects of my study, and it just makes my journal or my writing book, whatever you want to call it, my study book, it just makes it very colorful, and it makes it attractive for me to also study. So that's something I would also recommend. I mean, if that works for you, but it really works for me. I like highlighting stuffs in different colors, and even on my iPad when I study, I write things, I use different highlighters. It just makes everything attractive, and it also helps me to retain information. It's the same, I remember with PH when I was studying ABGs, and just using color codes, blue, red, and green, gave me a lot of clarity. I remember when I got to my NCLEX, because you would be given you would have like a piece of paper, a laminated paper, and a pen or a marker where you could write. The first thing I wrote down when I got to my seat was to draw, because you just talk to my brain the way I drew the ABGs, the pH, the bicarb, the CO2, how I had everything drawn in my actual study book. I just reproduced that on that paper, that was given to me at the test center. So colors work for me, and if it works for you, please do that as well. So that's that about my Nclex. The last, I would not say study well, it's still a study material, but honestly, I stumbled on this by chance, because normally on Spotify, okay, so I like listening to podcasts are my thing. I love podcasts, especially those about finance, marriage, self-help, God, like Christianity as a religion. Those are the podcasts I listen to, and of course music, like songs, gospel songs. But what actually took my attention to Nclex on Spotify podcast, honestly, I can't tell, because one of those days I was just there to listen to music as usual, or maybe I was even there to listen to Joyce Meyer's podcast. I just typed Nclex, and I saw this particular review. Honestly, guys, I will show you. And I'm trying to bring it up now, because it's so funny, because I never even thought of going to Spotify for Nclex and podcast. I should have thought about it. I should have thought about it. Like, you should be able to find Nclex study materials or podcast on Spotify, but just never occurred to me. Anyway, this particular day, I think I was even running around, and I wanted to just plug my hairs. I was already about clicking on Joyce Meyer, and I just thought, you know what, Nclex. I typed Nclex, and then I saw different versions. I clicked on the first one, I didn't really like it. I clicked on this particular one. Let me just go to this. It says Nclex review, and they have this red. So this is what it looks like, guys. Let me just show you. So if you have Spotify app, just look this up. This is the profile picture, whatever it's called. It says keep calm and pass Nclex. And so I just loved, and I just fell in love with the way, I think there was this particular lady, I just fell in love with the way she would talk, explain things, and that's it. So that day I listened to a bit of the pharmacology, even the psycho medications, psychiatry medications, and I just say psycho for short. So yeah, and that was it. It did to my Nclex, I was in the hotel room, and because my Hatcha subscription had expired, I was wondering, could I study? And I just remember this particular, this podcast and I just started playing. And again, while I was reading the comments on whatever video I watched on YouTube, one of the comments said, know your insulins, know your diabetes, know your insulin. That was how the person said, know your insulins, know your diabetes. And it was a weakness for me because I didn't focus so much on that. So I had to start studying a lot of insulins and all of that. And I kind of understood it. I mean, a day before my NCLEX, I was very, very confident about diabetes mellitus and of course insulins and all of that. But because I wanted to be double sure that I'd mastered everything that had to be mastered about diabetes, so this particular podcast, the night before my exam, I just went on to search for maybe insulins or I think diabetes mellitus, something in that line, or maybe pharmacology, I can't remember. And I got my hairs plugged, and she made it very explicit. She explained the insulin, the way she even explained the peak, because I'd crammed the peak hours, but the way she explained it, I did not even have to cram it. It's the same with Nclex, like the way he explains it is tough, so you don't even have to do a lot of cramming. So she simplified it in a way that I just could not forget. And it's so funny because I got to my test, and like my last two or three questions were related to everything that she simplified, and I was like, I did not have to think twice when I saw the questions. Obviously they were not verbatim, but I knew which ones to select, and I'm just so grateful. So again, I would not say I really studied a lot from this podcast, because it was like a minute thing. Like, it was just towards the end of my study that I stumbled on this, but I used a lot of Archer. Definitely, like I said, 79% of the questions I answered, and I had 17 readiness assessment tests, or maybe 18. So I did a lot on Archer, and of course my Nclex, I listened to all these audios over and over again, and I was writing down. And lastly, this was what helped me, and I would highly recommend this podcast to you guys. If you have Spotify, you would find it there. So yeah, that's that about the study materials. So before I leave, I'll talk about self-care during NCLEX, like whilst you're preparing for NCLEX, how to take care of yourself, because it can be very, very overwhelming. What I would just say is pace yourself, and because you don't want to be sleep deprived, I was sleep deprived, obviously, because I had other things going on. I was really sleep deprived. But regardless of being sleep deprived, I think one thing that also helped me was pacing myself and having the schedule. I knew that every day I had to answer a minimum of 85 questions. Like, whether I liked it or not, it was mandatory for me to answer 85 questions. Definitely make sure you have a schedule. I cannot overemphasize this. You need a schedule in place. So if you want to study in the morning, yeah. If it's at night, like for me, my break time wasn't really working for me, because honestly, I wanted to watch things I enjoyed watching on YouTube during my break time, or sometimes I just wanted to listen to just Maria podcast. And I just my break time, that 30 minutes of break, I wanted to eat my lunch and of course listen to something more edifying. There were times I took questions, but honestly I didn't really take questions during my break. I did most of my study at night, in the middle of the night when my son was asleep, when everyone was asleep, and I would just start studying. So I have a schedule. For me, nighttime was better because of my family situation and my work. So choose what would help you considering your situation. And I would not want you to copy what others do. Some will say they study during their break. If that doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you. Some don't compare yourself, especially if you have kids. If you're married, you wouldn't want to compare your own schedule with someone who is single, or who doesn't work full-time or whatever. So what I'm just saying is tailor your schedule to fit your life, basically, your life. So that's what I would say about having a schedule in place. That actually helps. Another thing is to conquer the fear of NCLEX. There's just this particular fear about NCLEX. People just think, oh, NCLEX is so hard. Honestly, for me, especially because I had nothing to lose if I failed NCLEX, I had nothing at stake. For me, it felt like leisure for me, because there was really nothing substantially at stake for me. So I was not afraid of the exam. I was not honestly, I was overwhelmed with study. I was more overwhelmed with obviously studying for the exam, and of course, like I've said a lot of times, because I was also writing my dissertation. But like being fearful or being afraid was not it at all for me. I was not scared, I was not afraid. So take out that fear, and I think the bulk of the stuff is like the fear. If you're able to take out fear from the whole thing, the rest will just be very easy. And one thing I would also say is, because a lot of the questions were things that I was doing in my day-to-day life as a nurse, like there were things that encountered at work as well, like things that had to do with chemotherapy. I did not even have to study because it's something I do. I work with cancer patients, so there are some of these things that would come with experience again. So don't feel that you are not enough when it comes to NCLEX, especially if you've been working as a nurse. Do you get? And this is particularly like for people who are like overseas trained nurses like I am. You already have the experience, so I'm not saying you should now trivialize NCLEX. You still need to study because there are strategies that would help you pass, but again, your experience will also help you pass. That's something I want you to know, because a lot of questions, especially those that had to do with chemotherapy, honestly, I did not have to really study. It was just common sense. Another thing is common sense also works in NCLEX. So there were questions that I did not know the answer. But again, there was this particular strategy of true or false. So you pick each of the answers and you say true or false. Is this true or is this false? And common sense would always work. There were instances that I did not know the particular medication for a particular stuff, a particular condition, but so out of like say 4 answers, I knew 3 other medications. You get 3 other drug on that list. I knew what they were for. For instance, say on that list I had like metronidazole, I knew what it was for. I had like lansoprazole, I knew what it was for. Like I'm just saying paracetamol, I'm just like saying random drugs now. I knew what that meant for. So the fact that I knew the indication for the other 3 medications, I already knew the answer. I knew that the 4th one was the correct answer for that question. Do you get? So common sense also works on NCLEX, and that really helped me. And I think that also stopped me from panicking, because I knew that honestly, I just knew that at the end of the day, my experience, the fact that I'd studied hard, and common sense, either of those 3 or the combination of those 3 would actually work for me, and they did work for me. So please calm down and relax and all of that. I know some people will say stop studying like a day to your exam. Honestly, that was not for me. Even though my subscription had finished like a day to my exam, I was still studying. Like I said, I was still listening to those podcasts, YouTube videos, I was still listening to. So I'm not even going to say stop studying a day to your exam, because I was still studying, even though it wasn't like active studying, but I was still studying. So that's that. And again, my final thoughts would just be like, just go for the exam. Do not panic, don't be fearful, do not be afraid, do not be dismayed, okay? Because you have what it takes already to pass the NCLEX, and NCLEX is not the end of the world. And just see it as another exam that you've written. You're already a nurse, like you've already passed through school. Do you get? So you already have what it takes to pass NCLEX, and I don't want you to like just get discouraged because of the old noise or vibe about NCLEX. Honestly, it's just another exam, and I'm just going through my notes if I've covered everything I plan to cover, and I think I have. So if you have any other questions, let me know in the comment section. Again, don't ask me if I plan to move to America, because it's not on my short-term goals. It's definitely on my long-term goals. It's on the list of my long-term goals, and it's not on the list of my short-term goals. So I honestly just decide to take the NCLEX for keeps. And when I mean short-term goals, my short-term goals are goals of between 0 to 2 years or 0 to 3 years. Those are things I classify as short-term goals for me. Usually 0 to 2 years. And my long-term goals start from like 3 years and above. So you get what I mean. So yeah, that's it. But I like the UK, because I know questions will come like, are you planning to leave the UK? Honestly, I love the UK, and moving to America is not on my short-term goals. It's not on the list of my short-term goals. So if I'll be moving to America, it will be anything from 3 years from now and above. Yeah, so that's that. But yeah, if you have any questions relating to NCLEX, do let me know in the comments. And yeah, that's it. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.